You started? All right, thanks for that. Week 3, Human Action for World Futures. And the topic today is really thinking about the future, trying to not exactly predict it, but thinking about possible futures. Now, action's a funny thing. If you act for a reason. You're acting for something in the future. Would that be correct? You don't act for something in the past. You can't. All you can do is cry, and that doesn't really help anyone. You act for the future. And remarkably, most of us are acting for the future a hell of a lot of our waking life. Everything you do something. You come to university, that's for the future. You're thinking about your future career. You may be thinking about having a good time, but generally speaking, you're thinking about the future. Now, can you predict the future? Or can you predict the future? Do you think you've got any chance of thinking about what the world will be like in 50 years' time? Not much? Not definitely, that's for sure. But sometimes we can get a fair understanding of what's likely by looking at past events and looking at trends. Yep. Universities hate doing this. There are very few courses of future studies. They've been tried, and occasionally around the world there'll be a future studies course. Very rare, because universities don't like uncertainty and they see it as crystal ball gazing. We think differently. We think if you're not thinking about the future and doing the best you can, not exactly to prophesize, but at least be aware of what might happen, you're much better prepared. Much more different and more important is this notion of scenario building. Thinking about the future, you could say, oh gee, we're going to have a financial crisis and therefore I should start saving my money now. That's almost not very clever. Well, it is clever to a point. Another way of thinking about it is that we might have a financial crisis. What can I and what can we do to avert that? I could imagine not having a financial crisis. I could work towards that. That's what we call scenario building. I can envision a situation which is really quite good. Does that make sense? So scenario planning is what we're doing a lot today and came up in those resources. Now, we can think about scenario building and how you build a better future, and then we can start working towards it, but you can't do that unless you have in mind what you're trying to aim for. Make sense? And that Great Transitions Initiative, which is in those resources, is doing precisely that. They're trying to build scenarios that the world could become a pretty awful place. Did anyone read that? Barbaric? Barbarism? The other scenario was everything stays steady. You read about that? And the conclusion is that's not possible, but you can try. And the other scenario is we could build a much better world. You came across that? The preferred, they sometimes call it eco-futures. So out of that resource, you get the idea that, yes, we should be thinking more along these lines. If we don't do anything, we could go down the gurgler. If we do something, we could create a much better world. So that's kind of very positive. So we want you to be focusing on that. And particularly, we want you to be thinking what you might do, where you might be going. Sorry. I think I was awake too much last night. We want you to be aware of things, what's happening in this world. Because if you're not aware, if you're not constantly monitoring things, you'll never really know where we're going. So we could get you to talk about the Great Transitions Initiative, but it's fairly theoretical and you should read it, but it's not really for discussion. The other resource we gave you is 10 forecasts. Anyone get onto those? Hopefully, yes. God, they're fun, aren't they? Oh, yeah. I have my doubts about them. I could go to any one of you and say, can you come up with a sexy forecast that's really exciting? Everyone will be interested. And if you come to me and say, look, Neville, you've been around a bit. You can probably predict something really exciting I can put in the newspaper. Yeah, I could do that. I could probably come up with 5 things. Would you believe me? And are they all that great, or are they just sexy, great ideas? So we sort of asked you to look at those forecasts, think about them, remembering each person who made a forecast, that is their hobby, that is their passion. We want you to look at them more carefully and think, are they feasible? Are they practical? Are they going to take us somewhere? And are they really going to have a big impact on ourselves and our planet? Make sense? So that's your major point in this tutorial topic. But in addition with these tutorials, I want to stir the pot. I want to stir the pot big time, and I would like you people to be stirring the pot. Do you remember these sort of circles I showed you right in the very beginning, that action starts off with awareness? You've got to be aware of problems. Remember that? What came next? I've forgotten. Short-term memory. Oh dear. Can anyone hint what the next circle was? Understanding. I'm aware of a problem, but I don't really understand it. Next one was engagement. I've got to be impassioned to do something about it. Next one was empowerment. I've learned how to handle it, and then I finally do action. Keep on coming back to that. Let's get back to awareness. My big argument with most people in this world, or certainly most people in Australia, they're not aware. We live our lives totally secluded, sequestered. We've got lots of money, we're very busy, and we're not aware. Now, I just want to throw you something which is not on topic, but the sort of things I want you to be thinking about. Anyone heard about this Malaysian airplane that went down recently? Ooh. Okay, so you are reading a newspaper, that's great. What do you think? Anyone game to tell me? It was terrible, isn't it? Horrible. Anyone want to comment? I'm going to trap you. Come on, you'll tell me. Were you interested?
Yeah, I think it's a bit, given the technology of today, the fact that we can still lose an airplane is a bit devastating.
Okay, it's devastating. That's a good point. So technologically, it's amazing that sort of thing can happen, although when you think of all these airplanes, it's not all that unlikely. I want to give you a different take, a different awareness. How many people died, or we think they died? 239. Gee, that's a tragic. 200. Look, please, I don't want to sound horrible here, but I probably will. 239. You know, that happened about 3 or 4 days ago. On that very same day, 10 aeroplanes fell out of the sky, killing 2,390 people. Did you read about that? No. Well, they weren't really aeroplanes. They were imaginary aeroplanes full of starving people who died on the same day. 10 times more. Didn't get in the newspapers. I've just lied to you. It wasn't 10. It was 100 aeroplanes fell out of the sky the same day. 23,900 people died of starvation, and none of us think about it. We're not aware. The next day, another 100 aeroplanes fell out. And today, 100 aeroplanes are going to hit the ground carrying 23,900 people. Have I made my point? The fascinating thing with us is that we get grabbed by the newspapers, we get grabbed by television, we get grabbed by our peers, we get grabbed by our politicians, we get grabbed by our lecturers telling us things, and we don't see. So a lot of this course is about trying to wake you up so that you can look at things in different ways. Whereas most of the common herd are repeating themselves, you people are a little bit cleverer. You'll be able to go further. Happy with that? So just sort of keep that in the back of your mind. And I don't know whether this is possible in future tutorials, it may be that if 1 or 2 of you have an idea you'd like me to talk about, introduce as news, which is sort of related to the topic, get on to me beforehand if you like. Would you like to do that? Just 2 or 3 minutes thinking about something that really strikes you as highly relevant to this course, which is topical, local, and really is grabbing the community. Can we look at that from a different perspectives as people doing integrated human studies? Okay, I better stop at that point. Break up into your groups, get going on the forum, think about not just those 10 predictions that people are prophesizing, but you yourselves might have something extra. And then that will come out of the Tute into your forum groups later on. And then in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to stop you and start today thinking about projects and where they're going to go. Happy with that? Righto, go to.